So if you're thinking that rejection means that it's over, then you've already lost. My client was blocked, broke. She felt like she'd been completely forgotten about, but then 8 months later, she finds herself on a little getaway with her SP in Capri with a ring on her finger. The difference is she had learned about the law of reversal, which is a hidden law that not many people in the manifestation community know about or talk about. But I'm going to break it all down here so that none of you will ever spiral again when your 3D really starts to look like an absolute nightmare. I'm going to show you everything. I'm going to show you how my client went from really harsh rejection to getting the proposal, because in reality, they are essentially the same thing. And this is how her dire circumstances were, in the end, the rocket fuel for her getting such amazing success. So this video is going to be jam-packed to the brim with juicy gems. You know what I'm going to say. Start jotting them down or use the comment section below, guys, so that other people can see what juicy gems you're picking out from here. Many people do miss a lot of the good stuff that is in these videos because it's so jam-packed. I'm aware. Many of you have told me you've watched my videos over and over again and you're still grabbing more and more stuff. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of like a movie, isn't it? After a while, you watch it a couple of times, you're like, I don't remember this bit. And this is, of course, the reason why your attitude, your dedication is the reason why we get so much success on this channel, so much incredible success. All of you are amazing manifestors. Thank you for sharing. Share your successes in the comments. I don't care how big or small you think they are, even if they're past successes or they're successes of other people that you know about, that you know is a manifestation. They might not even know. Because we're going to build a community of success. The success rates on this channel are really high, and I would put a lot of that down to the kind of mindset that we all have. Of course it is. Universe is mental, right? So I'm going to ask all of you as well to stick around for this, stay until the end, because I'm going to help to break down the main assumptions that my clients had, that when we changed them, it shifted her reality from such a bleak place to a place of amazing success. I mean, not just with her SP, I'm even talking with her career as well and her mental well-being. And I'm also going to share at the end 3 rules that completely transformed her reality. I know, there is always a lot of stuff to take in. Yes, I'm sharing it all here. And this is why so many of you, I guess, have been telling me that you felt like these videos have been more like free private sessions. And that's the whole point of it. I want this channel to be your space for real transformation. That's why there's no paywalls here. And what I ask for you guys is that when you feel the changes and the shifts, which many of you are reporting to me that you are, then all I ask is that you pay it forward. Pay it forward by sharing or subscribing to the channel, liking the video. I know many of you are already doing that. I've heard that some of you have found me through blogs and other posts as well, which is really, really lovely. This is how we expand and get the message out there so that it can help other people who are going through a really hard time. And a very quick shout out and thank you as well for all of you who have been sharing your success stories. And those of you who have been donating to the channel as well. I really do appreciate all of you, and I'm happy to keep sharing the same framework. And that's what I do here. This is what these case files are based on. These client studies that I'm sharing with you, they're based on hours and hours of notes that I have taken through my calls with my clients. And I'm happy to break it all down for you and show you the kind of mechanisms that I use, which is what gets incredible success, what really shifts reality when we shift the identity level. Now, a lot of you are already very, very familiar, I know, with the Bridge of Instants. How many of you have heard of that? Bridge of Events, right? Which is essentially the events that need to occur that take you from poverty to wealth, for example, if that's what you're manifesting, that takes you from single to married, for example, if that's what you're manifesting. It's that how many events need to take place for this outcome to be birthed into your reality. However, and we might all understand this, right? However, what I do notice in the way that perhaps the message has been taught over the years is that many people have taken this have taken it in such a way that they try to micromanage the bridge, and they freak out when the bridge starts to go a bit awry, because the second that things get hard, many of you do go into a panic mode. How many of you do? Fess up. I mean, I'm the same, of course. We've all been there. We've all been there where we've been met by a horrific chain of events that we did not expect. It's not what we would have chosen, of course. That's why it says in scripture, was it God's ways are greater than ours? God's ways are past finding out. Don't even try to work it out. But we will interpret many of these events from our finite, limited human perception and minds, you know, from the silence, the rejection, the third party, the debt, the failed career, the labels, the diagnosis. You will see these things and you will immediately assume that you've failed. All of us have done this at some point. We'll get frustrated and we will feel stuck. And then we remain there, perpetually manifesting or freezing this same set of circumstances, repeating the loop and the cycle. Now, I've worked with, as you know, an array of incredible people, from you guys watching right now to high-profile clients to Hollywood and even Bollywood actresses and actors also, you know, the individuals that you would look at their life and you would think, wow, you know, I envy that lifestyle. Everything in their world must be amazing, must be rosy. But I can tell you something, and like I said, I worked with so many of them, even coaches with massive channels. You know, many people get surprised that even that they would need help. But of course they do. We're all human. None of us, not a single one of us, no matter how experienced, no matter how successful you might be, we're not going to ever be exempt from the swings that life puts us through, because life does have its seasons, you know, and like I say, it doesn't matter who you are. No one is going to be exempt from experiencing the law of rhythm and polarity, of which I am also going to talk about more in this video. But you must know, and I thought it's important just to let you, you know, just to state this. And I think many of you do know this, but some of you don't. Some of you do blame yourself. But when you encounter a rough bridge of events, try to remember that, listen, you don't puppeteer people or events. What you do is you assume, right? Law of assumption. You take on the assumption, you take on the identity, the state, the version of you who has the desire. That's what manifestation is about, right? So when you do that, you assume, and then you walk that bridge. Yes, that bridge is shaped by your assumptions and beliefs as well, but we can't predict every single event that is going to happen. Otherwise, we would all be psychic and we all know what to expect. But no, we know the bridge unfolds as it unfolds. You have no control over the how or the when of things. And so that's why I say don't blame yourself for every bump that you experience on the road, because we're only responsible. The only thing we really have control over is our state, is our stance in relation to those desires. And it's what decides, it's what keeps us going through this turbulent bridge. It's what keeps us persisting through it to the end, when our end result, whatever you have imagined, whatever you have embodied, whatever you have affirmed yourself to be, whatever methods you are using, whatever, that end result is going to be manifest. That's what you're going to encounter. But I think people often equate the fact that, oh, if I don't micromanage everything, that means I have no control and that means I'm not going to get my manifestation. No, it doesn't mean that at all. So just remember, it's not up to you to control everything. The how is not up to you. So please, please, if you're going through a rough time right now with your bridge, try not to see contrast as some sort of curse. This is what I did with my clients. I mean, the reason why so many of them get amazing success is because they grasp this concept. Now you're going to grasp it too. You're going to start to see contrast in your life as a sort of conveyor belt leading you to your desire. Listen to the wise words of the Bhagavad Gita, okay? Be steadfast, abandoning attachment to success and failure. Abandoning attachment to success and failure. Okay. And Coco has arisen now, so I'm going to take hold of my heated blanket. I'm going to take it back. All right, Bean? I was going to give you a cuddle and stuff, and you run away. So let's talk about my client. I tell you what, first of all, let's grab ourselves a hot drink, shall we? Because I nearly forgot, because it's Friday. We've got the Friday feeling, and it's been a busy Friday already. So my brain is a little bit frazzled. Do bear with me. You guys have been keeping me busy in our one-to-one calls, but I love and appreciate you all. Cheers to you. Here's to your success. Sit back, relax, pick up your hot drink, and let's drink to a fantastic weekend, shall we? Yes, and let's dribble some of that out too. Bit of rooibos. It's been a while since I've tried to pronounce it. So let's talk about my amazing client. She had voice noted me in more detail about her success and what worked for her, but she didn't want me to play it, although she has very graciously allowed me to share her story in more detail through the notes I have taken. It's understandable. She has at the moment got a very great media presence. It's forever growing right now, and she doesn't want to risk being recognized. So I do understand. But when she first came to me, her life was in a state of free fall. I mean, she was working had been working as a primary school teacher. She's been scraping by paycheck to paycheck. The job was extremely demanding, extremely stressful. And after years of this stress and masking her autism and ADHD diagnosis, she was masking it, working in these classrooms full of constant noise, full of chaos. Of course, her nervous system, she said, it just couldn't take it anymore. And the anxiety through all the pressure, the stresses of being a teacher, I mean, it just caught up with her and really destroyed her mental health. So she ends up going sick for a period and eventually never went back to this work. Now, that left her in a very lost and desperate state. And so in order for her to overcome that, she goes on the apps and she finds quite a niche app actually, where she then ends up making a connection with this really lovable, charismatic guy. Now, I should mention that this relationship was a long distance relationship. And although it wasn't really an issue for them, they had found ways around it. She said their connection was immediate. They were really close. They were communicating every day. They were having virtual online dates together. I don't even know how that works, but I thought it was really sweet and really clever when she was explaining it to me. Bean is going to start, sleep barking in a moment. So they would spend hours talking online. And for the first time in years, she had said that she didn't feel like she needed to completely hide who she was. She had a lot of shame around these labels of autism and ADHD. She felt that she was always being judged. She felt that things always came harder to her. She saw them as a disability. And so when she realized that he liked her for the parts that she had always been told were too much, of course, it just went towards further strengthening their bond. Anyway, an offer is made to come and visit. She jumps on it and she goes and she visits him. And of course, this is the beginning of the end. Not to make it sound drastic. But I think we can always guess where these case studies go, okay? Because otherwise she wouldn't have needed me, right? But she did fly over to see him, and life flipped in polarity again. So in his presence, she realized that he was quite disorganized and he hadn't actually arranged his time effectively. He also had his daughter for quite a few of the days that she was visiting. And although this wasn't so much of an issue, the fact of the matter is that the daughter has special needs. And so, of course, she required a lot more attention in that sense. And that took away from what Layla had hoped. What name did I give her? Leela? No, I give these names. These are pseudonyms, by the way. There's not. I never use my clients' real names to protect their identity. I can't remember if I even said that. See, I told you it's been a long day. But Yeah, she was obviously she was going there, having invested, having been really excited, worked her way up to it, only to realize that they weren't actually getting that much special one-to-one time. There was even a few nights where he ended up falling asleep in the daughter's room whilst reading a story to her. And although Layla got this, after a while, she understood, yes, okay, that's his little girl, but she was very honest with me, and she did say that obviously she was extremely disappointed, and it did hurt her because she had traveled all this way, and it seemed like he hadn't really planned this out very well. So through her lens of reality, through her assumptions, she was experiencing, okay, I'm not very important. And as a result, she wasn't feeling seen. She wasn't feeling heard. She didn't feel like she mattered enough for him to have organized this better. So, of course, as a result of that, she's feeling a bit resentful. She's feeling a bit more withdrawn, shuts down. And it tainted what was supposed to be a lovely time together. So days that they would spend together, she had said as well that she could see like distance in his eyes, there's a coolness in his demeanor. And of course, she's interpreting all of this as a rejection. Danger, 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 Will Robinson. Danger, danger. We're going to be abandoned, which again causes her to react. This is how she's perceiving her reality right now. This is the experience that she's gifting herself through her assumptions. And so she reacts to it. Okay, she closes herself off and she tries to push for answers as well, because a part of it was just causing her in her anxiety to just frantically get some sort of answer, trying to understand the situation, trying to gauge, where are you at? Are you even interested? Like, what's happening here? She did attempt on quite a few occasions as well to have some deeper conversations with him about life, about the future, about where this was going. But he didn't seem to open up, or at least, because they tell me the full story and I do analyze their language. He did open up, but essentially not in the way that she had required to feel safe. So after the trip, they do continue the relationship, and it actually spans a couple of years, although from what she describes, it was kind of like a friendship at this point. She would have stints of silence with him, then they would come back together again, reconnecting. He had come to visit her on a couple of occasions because she basically refused to go to him based on the last experience, and also it just wasn't financially viable for her at that time to be traveling to him all the time, and he was not in the best financial situation either. So of course, visitations were limited, but they did have this online connection. But of course, because the physical was so limited, a lot of emphasis was placed on online communication, which it naturally would be. And she realized that he just wasn't communicating in the way that she had required him to, in order to feel safe, in order to change the stories that she had started to paint about him and their relationship. So she gets more and more frustrated with him, and she's getting more annoyed. She's noticing that communication is slightly dropping, and he would always reply, but according to her, it was the fact that he was not engaging in deeper communication with her. Again, like I say, that's a judgment, because from what she told me, it sounded like he was. But this is how clever your assumptions are. This is how much your assumptions will block. She didn't experience those deeper chats that she was wanting. And so she would think to herself, he's closed off. What is he hiding? And she'd get suspicious of him. She wouldn't trust him. She would keep on asking him about, are you okay? And what's going on? And of course, she would just be met with, everything is fine and just tired after work. So for her, for most people, this sort of situation, would cause anxiety. It would be disappointing. For her, for Layla, it was amplified because she relied so heavily on patterns for safety and consistency to know where she was at and to manage autism and anxiety and ADHD. So she felt traumatized. Like for her, it was next level anxiety, like next level traumatized reaction. She noticed like the littlest things. Like if messages weren't coming in at a particular hour, her mind went into overdrive, went to analysis mode. You know, was I being too much? Analyzing her own behavior. She started to fixate on his ex. And this was the thing about the fact that her trust for him was being affected, because she fixated on this ex so much and then started to fixate on the distance, which wasn't a problem initially, but then started to make it a problem. And the absence of words, or the little gaps, became, you know, more of a place for her to insert her own aggravation, frustration, anxieties, insecurities. And that's what she was doing. So then she ends up focusing on everything that is going wrong, focusing on the ex-girlfriend who is very present, focusing on this on and off communication. She starts, as a result of this new state that she's occupying, she starts to check his social media, of course, which a lot of people do, for some sort of semblance of control, right? We do it in a desperate attempt to keep safe, because in a way you feel like you're preparing yourself for the worst. Then you can be like, okay, I was expecting that, you know. Not that it ever lessens the pain anyway. But she kept on checking and preparing until one day, and get this, the worst was revealed. Or was it? But no, the worst was revealed. She sees some sort of image. I can't remember what it was, but she alluded to the fact that there seemed to be a reflection, some female presence in the background of one of his stories or photos that he had posted up on his social media. Now, this flooded her nervous system with severe anxiety and panic. She's thinking, oh my God, he is back with the ex, just like I thought. And she starts questioning, and this is important. So I want you to just keep this bit in mind, okay? This bit about the ex, because what just happened here? Did her fear just manifest? Because I know many of you do get fearful about wherever your focus is, and are you going to end up manifesting these negative things and negative thoughts? Okay, it looks like her fear manifested. I'm going to explain more. You know, keep hold of that thought. It's all going to become clearer towards the end. So what happens is, of course, she spirals, because this is what she's seen. She confronts him quite aggressively. He completely denies it, which makes her even more mad, because now he's lying blatantly to her face. She ends up blocking him, following a couple of arguments, and then she'd unblock him again, and then she'd check his social media some more, and then she would cry, and then she would pray, and then she would affirm, and then she would script, and then she would go back and check again some more. She would send him some messages, trying to bridge the gap between them, trying to get him to fess up, you know, admit it, because he just seems so closed off right now, and he seems to get more and more closed off, which gets her more and more pushy and frustrated, until she gets triggered. He snaps. Eventually he can't do this dance, this to and fro anymore, because it did last quite a few weeks. It was getting quite intense, and then it just all came to a head, and in the end he was just like, I need to cut ties. He was just like, I need to cut ties, you know, I've had enough, I need space, and you know, I don't want to be with you anymore. And he ended up blocking her. Of course, absolutely devastating and heartbreaking for Layla. Why do I pick these names I can't even pronounce? But absolutely devastating. I mean, you can imagine how broken up she was about this. And not just that. The thing is, that wasn't the only part of her life that was going to pot at the moment. She was in a real predicament with her finances. She'd accumulated a lot of debt. She was really judging herself very, very harshly in terms of the fact that she had absolutely no direction in terms of her career. She was really too anxious as well to even try to pursue another job. She was crippled in terms of her mental health, and she just couldn't focus on anything at this moment. It felt completely trapped. So this period of darkness, which I've been through as well, I've told you guys about numerous times. I mean, I've mentioned about the things that I have manifested. I've been doing this 24 years since I discovered the law. Yes, I've manifested the relationships, the SPs back, the car that never existed, the house, weight weight loss and physical body changes and things for other people. And I tell you, like I say, one of my proudest manifestations have been the recovery from mental health. Because like I said, that you guys didn't know me before. And those of you who met me around the time when I started my channel would have seen I was still in recovery of post-traumatic stress. I talk very different. My energy is very different. Like everything's very different in those videos. Yes, and I was inexperienced, of course, too, and shyer. I'm still shy. But there is a huge difference, a huge contrast. And even, my skin was gaunt and I was just not in a good place. I was really, really sick. Have recovered in record time. Because they give you that sort of, that's a life sentence. They're telling you you're going to have it for years or the rest of your life. That's what they were telling me. And I think it was like 8-9 months that I'd recovered from that. And then debilitating anxiety and depression, from being agoraphobic, I couldn't leave the house, to recovering from that. So I know what it's like to be in a really dark, deeply dark place of despair. I know what it's like. And that's what I could see for her. That's where she was. She had hit her rock bottom. But I had said to her, look, this period that you're going through right now is what I will call just the collapse phase. This moment where everything in your life right now is your life is mirroring back to you the beliefs that you haven't yet rewritten. And in this chaos, it's very important, and this is what really got me through. In the chaos, I always kept it in my heart. I didn't deny what was happening. I didn't suppress the nights that I just wanted to cry and fall asleep crying and fall asleep raging and venting. I didn't suppress any of it. I didn't do techniques trying to manage any of it, because the moment I start to do that and try and do techniques to flip my thoughts and positive thinking and everything, it was signaling that there was something wrong. I just knew that I had to let it be processed, trusted that my body could take care of it, let me feel it out. That's what I did. That's why I recovered so fast each time. And I said to her as well, I said, don't fight any of it. I said, feel it out, but also just have in the back of your mind that something sacred is happening right now. And that is, see it that your old identity is essentially now starting to dissolve. And we're going to start to implement, as we implement this new programming, things are going to change. See it as a process of release. And I think this thought process really helped her, because instead of seeing it as I'm stuck and I'm not getting better, even if she was, and she was crying for weeks, I was just like, hey, trust. I was like that for a couple of months with the PTSD. It was a few months, before I really started to see the light at the end of it. But anyway, this is where things start to turn. Now, we had been working together. We were challenging her old assumptions that caused this situation in the first place. And I'm going to take you through 3 of her key ones. How many of you actually managed to guess some of her key ones already? There was many that we addressed, but for the sake of the video, I'll go through 3 of them so that you guys can apply it to your own situation. And then I also, like I say, I helped her processing through the pain. She was feeling anger. She was feeling betrayal. She was feeling resentment. And of course, you can't, impress a new identity and that new end scene and start to occupy a new state without having processed all of that. So we then also impressed her subconscious with that hypnotic journey that took her through the spectrum from being rejected to being chosen, from failure to success. And like I say, what happened next was truly astonishing. So I remember she was saying it was like some stupid hour in the morning, in the early hours, the wee hours. It was raining, she was saying, and she was just sat there, in her usual state. And suddenly it was like something just switched in her. I think she'd been listening to the hypnosis for a while. Obviously, she had let our phone calls and that resonate and go in and start to impress her. But this particular night was when it all switched, because she suddenly stopped running from everything and she pulled out a blank canvas that she had. She puts on her camera and she starts filming herself painting what the pain looked like. And I thought this was like ingenious, like I said, because this was a dream of hers actually, to be an artist, but she never occupied the state out of fear and fear of failure. So like I said, we had addressed all of this with her assumptions about that in career. And every brushstroke that she used became, I suppose, an expression of her new assumption. She wasn't using words, she was using energy. Of course, as an artist, that was her expression. She's painting that I am safe as I am seen through my art. I don't need to be fixed to be loved. And the next morning she goes and she posts that video up again. I can't remember which platform she used, because she uses a few now. And apparently that video of her painting and talking through her pain as she's doing it, it reached thousands of people, and I think it touched the hearts of many. So she sees it, she feels good about it, she continues. This at this point was more about her, part of her healing, but she's starting to grow a following from this across the platforms, because she's got an interesting, unusual eye for detail, a particular skill, and there's an element of an innocence and an openness about her that is, I suppose, rare. So as time passed, she starts to notice she's getting all of these emails, she's getting messages, she's getting DMs, she's getting gallery assistants calling her up, she's getting people saying, I've been watching your reels, you know, organizations are like, can you bring in some of your pieces for a group show? A local cafe had asked her for prints on consignment. She had a couple of people from her days at the school, a couple of the mums and that, asking if they could buy some original prints for their kids' rooms. And so within weeks, she'd already doubled her rates because she was selling herself short. She doubled her rates. And she started to make some incredible sales and up her game with it. And she was getting all sorts of commissions from all sorts of clients. Now, meanwhile, things in terms of her love life had gone a little bit stagnant. There was still no communication, but money and career was very much stabilizing during this time. Months pass by. She's busy just being. She's sticking to the work where, you know, we've met only like a handful of times, and she really immersed herself, you know, in the whole in the system that I'd provided for her. And that's when rhythm started to do its quiet work, because he comes in. I don't have all the details as to what happened and who reached out first, but anyway, they reconnect, and she notices, and that's it. She did notice that he unblocked her. That's it. He unblocked her from one of the platforms, and he starts to like her social media, and then he starts to comment just to show his support. And then next thing you know, he's in her DMs, and they're talking about how things have been, and she's responding from a place of calm, of warmth, of love, asking how he's doing, how is the daughter. And things actually progressed really fast from there. Talks increased, became more frequent. He opened up a lot more because her energy now from this identity was much less anxious, much less pressing, more open, more warm. And from this state of mind, like I say, you know, the truth came out too. And he offered this truth. But you know how I said to you earlier about, did her fear manifest in relation to the third party? What happened with that? Well, wait for this. Apparently, he hadn't gone back to the third party at all. There was no third party. It was a complete fabrication of her mind. Yes, he is co-parenting with his ex. Yes, they share a child. Yes, they are involved in that sense. And they're both very, very dedicated parents. Their child is special needs. So there was quite a lot of time spent together around that period, because I think the child's health had been affected. The hospital appointments ramped up. And yes, he was spending more time, but of course, perhaps wasn't as open, because he saw how Layla was reacting. He saw how anxious she was. He saw how angry she was getting, but it seemed like nothing that he said or did was right. And so he felt overwhelmed. I mean, he was working the double shifts as well in order to support his daughter's health needs. And on top of that, with the long distance and all of this pressing that he was getting from Layla, you know, he had enough. He had enough. So her fear of him being with a third party didn't actually manifest. That fear didn't manifest. It was the fear itself, the experience of fear. That's what manifested. But in terms of the reality, there was no third party situation. It was complete fabrication. Her fears, her assumptions about not being chosen and not knowing her worth, and that created a third party situation that didn't even exist, but it caused her to paint a nightmare where there basically wasn't one, because her mind was so desperately seeking some sort of closure. And, you know, where none existed, her assumptions filled in the gaps. So fast forward, they had met up a few times and everything was going really, really well. Like I say, things actually progressed pretty fast between the two of them. Her new state had allowed for this love to come in without pressure. And he didn't have the pressure of his daughter's health anymore. Reality had shifted. Her health had improved. There was not as much hospital visits. He's not as overwhelmed with all of that and work anymore. So he's got more space for her too. And fast forward, like I say, once again, to the present day where she had sent me this message, pictures of her on a recent holiday, and in her voice note sharing with me how he ended up proposing whilst they were on their magical getaway in Capri, which she told me I should visit. I have never been. Do we have anyone here who has been? I don't even know where it is. Actually, I have to look it up. But congratulations, darling, if you are watching this. And I know you've been very busy. You've been saying that you guys have been going and visiting each other's families and stuff and spreading the good news. But what an incredible turnaround. And how did we get her from such, like I say, such a place of failure? If you knew, like, the hours we would spend talking and I would be listening to her crying like through the evenings, to now a place of such bliss and success and, you know, going forward towards marriage. So this was all the law of reverse, like the law of reversal in action. Law of reversal is talking about basically the practical application of a much older mystical law, which is the principle of polarity. And this is where everybody gets stuck, you see, because as I mentioned before, a lot of you see success and failure, or love and rejection, or wealth and poverty as separate things, you know, opposite things. And so when you're saying, oh, this is the opposite, you're creating a sense of duality. But the ancient mystics had taught us the non-dual truth. They're not actually separate. Hot and cold, night and day, these are not separate things. They are two ends of the same pole. As it states in the Kabbalion, opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Identical in nature, but different in degree. So I want you to think of it like a thermometer, okay? You've got hot and cold. They're not two different things. They're both just temperature. Hot is just the lower degree of, cold is just the lower degree of heat, okay? They're the same measurement. Your life is the same. So rejection and being chosen, they're not two separate things, different realities. If we think of it more as on the same spectrum, you lessen this sense of separation. Things don't feel so out of your reach anymore. Do you ever wonder, like, how, like I say, people on this channel, all of you, even, not just people who work with me, people who view the channel, who share their success that I post on my website, they're sharing miraculous stories. How do you think they become capable of something like that when the circumstances are so dire? It's because they lessen and bridge the gap, the separation, by seeing it from this non-dual perspective. You know, relationships, if we saw relationships as, you know, that like I say, that spectrum, the rejection and the commitment, you know, see it all fall under the one banner. Or if I see poverty and wealth not as two different states, but that they fall under the same spectrum that is the abundance umbrella. Like, if I start viewing it this way, bridge the gap. Because Layla's situation, okay, she was at her very worst on the extreme end of cold, you know, rejected, broke. So she's at one end of the spectrum, and using this deep code protocol that I'd put together, this is what, you know, we don't look to try and control, like I say, the outer world. we don't look to control the swing of the law of rhythm. Like I say, none of you are going to be exempt. You can be the best manifester in the world. None of you are going to be exempt from experiencing the law of rhythm that creates the bridge of events. The how is not your job. You've been told that numerous times, right? I think every coach universally says that the how is out of your control. You don't decide how, but what is in your control is your assumptions. No one and nothing to change but self. Your assumptions are everything on this. So Lila didn't need to destroy the cold reality, the harsh truth, or she didn't need to fight it, okay? And this is what a lot of people end up doing. When you're fighting the 3D, you're trying to argue with the thermometer of life. I mean, we've already established in my last video, 3D is not real. So when you're fighting it, when you're affirming against it, when you're imagining against it, when you're throwing techniques at it, or you're trying to micromanage it in some way, always met with resistance. So instead, we just had to change the assumption in her own consciousness. So instead of observing, for example, cold, i.e. the rejection, but to get her to a point where she could effectively decide and accept that she was on the warm end of the spectrum. She is in the chosen end of it. She had to decide that right in that moment. And I helped her by challenging her assumptions in the way that I'm going to demonstrate for you, in the way that I've demonstrated in other case studies. She had to assume, okay, feel chosen. Even though I don't feel chosen right now, I'm going to decide I'm chosen. I'm going to feel wealthy right now, even though I'm in debt. I'm going to get in touch with wealth in my imagination until that feels more real to me than the 3D circumstances, in the sense that I'm more connected to that outcome than the 3D circumstances. Neville Goddard called this the law of reversal. And he taught that, you don't fight the 3D. You look to revise it if you really need to. That's what helped me overcome post-traumatic stress, actually, was revising certain scenes, not denying that the incident ever happened, but revising it in such a way that it took out the emotional charge, changed the dynamic, whereby I went from victim to victor, from victim to empowered. Now, it's important for people who are, because I know that many of you are in a situation of you're ghosted, you're in a situation of silence. For those of you who say I'm manifesting a specific person, I want you to think of it this way. Silence is often the sound of the bridge finishing. That's how I got her to see it. That's what gave her calm, because she was really affected quite badly by the silence. But silence in itself, it's not painful because it's neutral. Like everything in this reality is actually neutral. We're the ones who apply the meaning to it. And silence only hurts. And this is your gem for you. Some of you will recognize this. I've said it before. Silence only hurts when you outsource your identity to replies. Let that sink in. Jot it down. Because, when Layla came to me, she was drowning in the 3D circumstances. She was 100% convinced by her story of failure. And my job was not to coddle her. My job was actually to start to shatter those assumptions that were creating her reality. And I'm gonna go through how we did this, and then I'm gonna take you through 3 rules that helped her to master the bridge. And then at the end, I'm going to share with you something really, really cool as well that some of you had been asking for. So let's look at reframing this, shall we? And let's shatter this old identity. So she'd come to me with her list of facts, okay? And I come back at her with my own counter arguments. Those of you who have worked with me, I've often said I should be a lawyer. So number one assumption that had really affected her was this assumption that she was too much. This is something that had come since her childhood, because her autism and ADHD labels made her feel like she was too much, that there's something wrong with her, that she's a difficult person to be around because her brain is wired differently to everybody, that it's harder for her to manifest. I mean, she saw it as a disability in every way. And she was like, yes, this is why I misread him and I pushed him away. You see, it's the ADHD, it's my neurodivergence, right? So I started to challenge that, because we know we live in a society of labels, okay? So I stopped her right there, and I said, wired wrong? Like, you think you're wired wrongly? I said, according to who? According to what? A system that was built for normal people. But what is normal? What even is that? Who's to say what is normal? And what if you were to start to see these labels? Because she'd had them so long, I think she wasn't ready at that point. I can always tell when someone's ready to remove the labels, or if they're not ready yet. She wasn't quite ready yet to detach from them. So instead, I got her to see it as a superpower. Like, what if your abilities, the fact that you're hyper-focused, the fact that you can feel so deeply, the fact that you're all this, you can see patterns so clearly. What if that's not a curse? What if it's the very thing that makes you a genius artist, which is what you want to be? And the man that you're looking for, he's not looking for normal, whatever the hell normal is. He's looking for you, for God's sake. He's been looking for you the whole time. He was connected to you this whole time. He came to see you as you are, not the healed, perfect version of you. He came to see you as you are. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I was tough on her. Second assumption. Third party. Hyper-fixated on the third party to obsessive levels it was becoming. And she was just like, okay, well, here's the fact. I saw it with my own eyes that he's back with his ex. I saw the photo. It's over. I've been replaced. So then I challenged that. Okay. I started to ask her, are you reacting to facts, or are you just reacting to a photo that you have narrated? And this is what a lot of people do. We are so adamant in our language that we have the facts. We're speaking from the facts. And when you start to challenge them, and you guys know, you guys have worked with me, I start to prod you and your story starts to break down, because she realized, she really thought she had proper evidence, proper factual evidence. And when I prodded her about it, she realized that there wasn't anything factual about it. It was merely seeing a reflection that she had built a nightmare out of. So I said to her, why are you choosing a story that destroys you based on nothing? You're giving all of your creative power to an image, a split-second image of someone's life. But what if that photo is actually irrelevant? Which of course it was. That's the thing with reprogramming. You see, she accepted it. She openly accepted it. And reality did reflect that. It was irrelevant. It was nothing about being together. What if this, I said to her, what if the only thing that truly matters is the decision that you are the one that he loves? You're the one he was been dedicated to, even when the relationship was so strained. He stayed around you 2 years. He was never back with his ex that time. And I reminded her that data is neutral, that your fear was writing the caption on this image. There was no romantic connection. They are co-parenting. It's an ex-partner. They hadn't been together for so many years. Why are they going to get together now? Really challenged the hell out of it for her. And so we went on to assumption 3. How many of you are resonating with these assumptions, by the way? How many of you have the same assumptions right now? 3 is a common one, and it was her failure, her assumption about being a failure. And that was further backed up by the facts that she was broke, that she was potentially could be facing eviction if this carried on because she was struggling with her rent, that her career was over. I'm a failure. I have nothing. I mean, she was going to town on herself. And so I challenged her. And so I said, okay, we accept the situation at the moment. Okay, yeah, you don't have a job. Okay, so the money situation is tough right now. I was in the same predicament. I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage. I was out of work. I was in the thick of PTSD, but I know how this law works. I knew it was taken care of, and it was. And so this was a big one for her too. And so I asked her, you want to see yourself as a failure, but what if you're finally free? Because the job that you hated so much, that you felt so trapped in, is finally gone. And the relationship that was causing you so much anxiety is paused right now. So life hasn't abandoned you. Let's just see it as it's basically cleared the deck. And this is now going to be your new launch pad. You've got no distractions. You've got nothing left to lose. The question is now, What are you going to build on this? What are you going to build on this right now? So we turned it into the launch pad for success. We turned it into the catalyst for moving things forward rather than allowing her to wallow in her self-pity and victimhood, you know? So we didn't ignore the 3D circumstances. We reframed it and we used it to our advantage, because a lot of you will say, okay, I'm trying to think positive and that. Don't think positive about it. You know, that's going to feel forced and fake. It's just about shifting your identity. Where are you standing in relation to this desire? That's what it always is. Where am I standing in relation to this desire? What role have I just allocated myself? Yes, the situation can be, the profanity nearly came through my lips then, but I know that my, so I don't swear, because first of all, I didn't know that you could on YouTube videos, so I never did. But secondly, I know that some of my friends' kids watch just to see me and sometimes see Coco Bean, who is, by the way, completely zonked out again. Oh my goodness. So I've lost my train of thought there. But anyway, let's go to the 3 steps, the 3 rules that she mastered. And this is the part that as well you might want to really pay attention to and to write down. Yeah, because that's it. Because we're never denying our reality. You're alchemizing things. Okay, you're changing it, you're acknowledging it, and then you're transforming. This is about transformation, transmutation. So rule number 1, your rock bottom, as we've established, is going to be your catalyst for success. Any time that I have hit rock bottom, which I have had, like I said, I was agoraphobic in my 20s, like I was debilitated by panic disorder. I mean, imagine going every day. Those of you who had panic attacks, I mean severe panic attacks where you think you're dying. Imagine having that numerous times a day, to the point of which you're afraid to go out in case you have one. You're afraid to even do anything a bit too physical in case you spark off a bit too much adrenaline. Oh my goodness, like it was insane. I was like one of those oversensitive car alarms that would go off at the slightest bit of wind, you know. So you never deny it. You use your current circumstances as a catalyst for change. So when you're told that you need to feel good to manifest, that you need to be high vibrations and you need to be positive, that is not actually true. I certainly wasn't positive. I was in depression. You're not in a positive state. I could just see through it. I could see through to another reality. I understood what it was and I didn't fight it. Layla was in a state of severe discomfort. Like I say, she had debts. She had no relationship. She had no job. She had no direction. She had poor mental health. She had nothing left to lose at this point. And right there was her secret weapon. Okay, we used that desperation and that lack and that frustration. We used it not as a sign of, oh, you failed and that's it. We used it as, okay, that's the most powerful creative energy you will ever have. So let's use it. Let's use this energy. Let's use this discomfort to take your passion seriously. Pour it into your art. And that's what she did. She loved art. That was a dream she was too afraid to turn into a business. That was something she just kept as a hobby. And when she started using it as a form of healing and expression and, you know, helping her to get through these hard times, things just really started to pick up for her. So the panic of having no money is actually what forced her to stop treating art like a hobby and to treat it like a business. And then she took all the pain from being ghosted, all the anxiety, all the fear, and she poured it into her canvas. And she had said that the pain is what basically inspired her to create some of her best works that people are paying her really good money for. She used the rejection as rocket fuel. So the universe was essentially stripping her of all of these distractions, including the relationship and including the safety net of her old job. And it was forcing her to become the person that she was meant to be, because she had been setting an intention to do something that she loved. Now was the time for it to be birthed. Let's put you through a nightmare. That's what I was trying to say, that my world was a nightmare. And I've had my biggest growth and rebirth from those nightmares. So if you're you know, if you start to see that your dire situation, shall we say, your situation at the moment, your circumstances that might feel so bleak, if you try not to see it as a block, but try to see it as, okay, this is like the brave decision that my soul has made to finally get me to pay attention, to finally get me to move. And we move the most when we are in pain and discomfort. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is about your 3D as a story. It's not a fact. There's too many of you seeing your blockers and your circumstances, and then you project more fear onto it, labeling it as a fact, which makes it seem so unmovable, makes it seem bigger than you. And what she had learned, what I had taught her and demonstrated to her, was that 3D is just a story that you're telling yourself about the data that you're seeing. So when you think of it like that, doesn't it sort of take the sting out a little bit? I mean, for example, the data that she saw was the photo. The story that she told herself was, okay, I see that there's a woman's reflection, oh, they're back together, it's with the ex, I knew it, I'm replaced. When in actual fact, the truth was the ex was just there as a co-parent. They have a child. They're leaning on each other for support. Because they were both struggling, because the child was going through quite a lot with her health at that point. There's zero romantic connection, zero, all for the sake of the kid. She was arguing with a shadow that was created by her own fear. That's what she was arguing with. So you have to stop treating your 3D like it's some sort of fact. Stop staring at the shadow and decide, what truth are you going to hold on to? What is your truth about it? Rule number 3, you must start to submerge yourself in the opposite pole. So what do I mean by that? Layla was at the pole of failure. Remember what we're saying, the law of polarity, right? They're not separate things. Failure and success were not separate, but she's at this end of the thermometer of failure, okay? So what does she do? She had to invert it. You know, she can't control the outer world directly, in the sense that I can't control my SP's every single move and every single thought. I can't control the fact that there might not be money flowing in right now. But what she could control is what she consumed and who she was becoming. There was no one and nothing to change but self, as we are taught in all of this. So she did 2 things, and this could be your action plan as well if you have similar circumstances. Number 1, and this is what I try to do with all of you, there is method to my madness, but number 1, she submerges herself in success stories. I mean, she went to town. That's the thing about being so, of her mindset, the way her mind is geared, she can be so hyper fixated. And she told me she binge watched every single success story over and over. And she had read a load of successes on my website, and she surrounded herself and just immersed herself with the proof of impossible things happening every day for all sorts of people, all walks of life, all situations, even looking at her own successes and creating her own blueprint, which we have done before, which I've explained before in previous video, because we did the blueprint with her as well. And it put herself in the mindset of success until success just felt more natural to her than failure. And you can't have success without failure, right? So we're never going to try and get rid of failure, but we're just taking her up the spectrum. The second thing that she did was that she stopped thinking about the woman that she wanted to be, again, as though it was something separate. Stop thinking of and start thinking from. She became the woman the moment she started thinking from the identity of the successful artist, from the identity of someone who is chosen and loved. She poured all of her energy into her new art business. She set up her social media accounts. She demonstrated her work. She acted like a successful artist. Even before she was getting all of the sales coming in, she was taking the inspired actions. And what happened as a result, you know, her art channel blew up. She started getting commissions. She's become successful all on her own. And of course, her SP has come back. He openly gets to express himself. He explains everything. There is no third party. She doesn't have this anxious neediness anymore. So she's treating him differently, and he's reacting and he's changing and opening up to her. Because she's no longer operating from desperate, not good enough, broken, defective, you know, with her labels and no one's going to love her identity. And she was more than good enough. And her labels were a superpower. And she was a successful CEO of her own life business, and now successful in love as well. And this is the woman who just got a marriage proposal. So congratulations, my darling. Here's to you and to your success. And thank you so much again for graciously allowing me to share. Now, there was, I did promise I was going to share something with you guys, and some of you know about this already, and some of you have already been using it. But this is like really, really exciting, and it's for the serious students out there, which I know a lot of you are. I think when you discover my channel, Joseph's channel, and those of you who are in our Discord community in particular, you've been getting amazing results. You've been saying that more and more, I know you've been coming forward and saying that you've been seeing there's a lot of misinformation about Neville's teachings out there, and that there's a lot of new channels now that are, they think, you know, it makes you think that they're Neville speaking and teaching, but they're actually just completely AI channels pretending to be Neville. And so what happens is the message, the teachings, it's getting misconstrued. You've got Neville mentioning stuff about vibrations and other concepts that he's, you know, he never really talked about. And it's just slightly corrupting the message that Neville wanted to get across. So I know many of you were being affected by that. And Joseph had promised to build a solution to help you all. And it's, you know, finally finished. So we can finally share it. He's created this app, and it's free for, you know, for all of you to use. Okay. And what it's going to do is going to allow you to have a direct conversation with Neville based on his lectures. It's different to the Neville bot that we have on our Discord, in that you can have the conversations about manifesting and that. This is more of a study tool. This is more about, you can pick a book or a lecture and you can have a conversation directly with Neville based on that one book or that one lecture. So it's not like a generic AI where it's pulling from all sources from all over the internet that could be incorrect. This is a closed system, and you can basically ask and dissect all of the concepts, because a lot of you still have questions about what did Neville mean by the wish, like what is the true meaning of the wish fulfilled? What is the true meaning of living in the end? You know, many people think it's like doing your affirmations and your techniques all day long. That's not living in the end, right? So it's really handy for those of you who want to learn and gain the information directly from the source, i.e. Neville's books and lectures. So like I say, there is a free version that all of you can use now, and it lets you study one lecture at a time. And Joseph is going to be footing the bill for every question that you guys ask. Of course, it charges money to run these programs. I don't understand technology, but he's going to foot the bill for that, because this is how passionate he is about ensuring that the integrity of Neville's work is protected. And for those of you who want to go even deeper, there is a quantum model. I know some of you already joined up to that. And this version allows you to reference all 300 of Neville's lectures all at once. So this is what is so fantastic about it. You can go through 300 of Neville's lectures all at the same time. You can get more complete, robust answers. And you can essentially see how Neville's works had evolved over time. But the thing is, with the quantum model, it is resource heavy. So there is a modest contribution that is going to, of course, help support it and help that part of it to keep running. But like I say already, those of you who used it have just had amazing fun with it, incredible results. We're getting great feedback. So thank you guys. I'm going to put the link in the description box for those of you who want to join. Like I say, go join the free version, go and have fun with it. We will want to see you flourishing and igniting your passion for Neville Goddard's true works. So I'm going to leave it there, because I know there was a lot to take in. Thank you, as always, you incredible, amazing manifestors. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your support as always. Thank you for your patience as I get through all of my emails for my one-to-one connections with you guys. Bear in mind the two products that I offer on my website, that's it. That's all I offer. I'm not like a usual, you know, here's a coach, here's a coaching call. These are systems that I offer. So that's why it's a little bit different and might look a bit confusing in comparison to what you're used to. But do bear with me. I will book and respond to all of you that want to work with me. Just be patient. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video.